today Mr. Pavitran Rajan, who is not only a cybersecurity expert, an authority, but also a prolific writer, an author, an intellectual. And now that I have read so many of his writings here and there, I can, with a good level of confidence, say that he is a man, a person with a vision of digital India. But before I start talking to him, let me give a brief introduction of him. Now, Mr. Pavitran Rajan is an alumni of National Defense Academy. While serving in the army quite early in his career, he did some pioneering work in cyber intelligence and information warfare. Later, he took a voluntary retirement and served with the Government of India Ministry of Home Affairs as an advisor. Pavitran Rajan is an adjunct faculty at the Cybersecurity Research Center at Punjab Engineering College, Chandigarh. He is also on the board of advisors of Cyber Peace Foundation. He is considered a thought leader in information warfare, a strategic thinker of the information age. He is associated with numerous think tanks in the country. He serves on the board of 2 private limited companies and advises various central and state governments. Agencies, including armed forces, on cybersecurity matters. As already mentioned, Pavitran Rajan is a prolific writer, and he has authored a very important book, which we are going to discuss today. And therefore, I will start with Pavitran Rajan. Welcome, Mr. Pavitran Rajan, for the IIRF platform. And I will start by asking you that you have recently published a very important book titled Engaging China-India Interest in Information Age. This is the book that I am referring to. I find that this book is dealing with an issue that is of immense national importance, no doubt, but very few people know about the subject. So I will start by asking you what motivated, what inspired, and what compelled you to pick up this topic and write this book.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for a very kind introduction and all the superlative words which you used for introducing me. I feel humbled and I feel honored that IIRF has, invited me for this particular interview. Now, this book or monograph, actually, it was, it is not that I decided one day to write this. There is this think tank called the Policy Perspective Foundation, based out of Delhi. The Policy Perspective Foundation is run by a lot of civil servants, but mostly and academicians, but mostly from the intelligence services of, civil intelligence services of India. So we have this, very illustrious intelligence man, Mr. P.C. Halder, who had been working along with quite some time. He one day suddenly called me and told me, Pavi, we want you to write a monograph. So my first, I said, thank you, sir, but why would you want me to? He says, we did go to various academicians and technologies, but they couldn't, put it together the way we wanted it. So I think you might be able to do justice to it. And he just gave me a broad parameter saying that, this was much before the India-China standoff, sometime last year. He then told me that, we have a, China is rising and it is creating problems all around the neighborhood. And India is still yet to rise. And there is an issue in which there is a power differential which has come about. And we need to know how to tackle that, especially with reference to the information age. So we'll be able to write this monograph. And that is how I took it up. But once I did my research and I started writing that monograph and submitted the first thing, the whole thing in entirety went through.
Okay.
without any corrections from PPF. I was very, except for certain,
That's great. That's great.
yeah. And plus,
Uh,
I also owe this particular book to a lot of, my, people who have worked along with me, who remain unnamed, except for the people who are actively involved. I've not named the mentors whom I consulted, etc. So this is a book, is a part of a journey.
okay, very very good. By the way, I have gone through your book. It's though it is small, I found it was very very important things you have talked about. And what I could understand by going through your book, that there are two components that you have highlighted in this issue that you have taken up. And I find that one issue is about the data. Okay, and the second issue that you are dealing with is the ICT, environment, technology, ecosystem, and all the other. So these are the two things. Basically, these are the two protagonists of the story that you want to tell. So, for the benefit of our viewers, I we will take this up one by one. So, let's first ask me, tell us, what is this data about? I mean, everybody is talking about data, and I think the whole world, globe is clamoring over the data. People's US doesn't want to give the hold of it. China wants to have it. In countries like India is crying, what is going to happen to my data? So, what is this data, and why it has suddenly become so important as a global issue? Can you elaborate, please, for us?
Uh, okay, so that's a very vast canvas in which you want me to answer, but then I'll try and address this in this particular way. The human brain and the human condition today, history, we evolved because of millions of years of evolution. Recorded history is just about last 10,000 years, but we have a memory of how the human being, tribes, nations, etc. have come about, and we have evolved in knowing how to handle nations, statecraft. The elite of the land, or the people who run this nation, they have a very good idea of how things should happen. But what has happened in the information age is connected, computers. Now, connected computers, which has come about in the last maybe 30, 40 odd years, which is a blip if you look at human history, has changed the whole paradigm of the world order. Now, the traditional, strategic thinker who's attuned to industrial era thinking, and who are at the helm of affairs, they have not understood how the world has changed, and it has changed very dramatically.
Okay.
And most of this is, buried in one, thing called technology. Oh, tech. Okay, this is a tech. And you will realize that in most nations, at least in India, what I've seen in the armed forces, the younger you are, the more knowledgeable you are considered. Okay, you will routinely find senior people consulting the junior guys. Hey, this is what needs to be done. But but when you look at a template from a national viewpoint, which I got, when I was in the Ministry of Home Affairs, and you have to think about defending a nation,
Okay.
then the canvas becomes much different. And I realized that a lot of people, our national policies on ICT have come about with people having no clue on the subject. It
Okay.
started off by accident by the outsourced IT industry. The law and everything, and the whole narrative was to support that IT industry, which is okay. But when you slowly realize that, you look at the information paradigm, the information networks and the data which have started generating, and how they have started, rapidly changing the power structures, you need to create a different narrative to make people understand what is it all about, so that the decision makers and policy makers can understand, and then take decisions which are in national interest. So that was the whole idea of bringing about the centrality of data and information and communication technology networks. There you are.
Okay. So, though you have given a very, very broad view about data and its implications, as a common man, I understand that when the data is pertaining to an individual, it is a privacy issue. And when the data, collective data, all the data is put together, that becomes a national issue. So I understand that that is what you are aiming at. You are talking about the collective data which needs to be protected, and we cannot allow that to be just go all over the place.
You're,
So
you're, you're partly right, sir. So, the privacy of an individual always has been looked at an individual privacy issue.
yeah,
But when you take the entire population as a whole, that's
yeah,
got a national security implication. But other than that, what is central in the information age is the ubiquitous nature of information and communication networks, which gives us a sense of modernity.
okay,
The information communication networks are like the nervous system of the modern world. So
yeah,
for a nation, if you minus ICT straight away, you go back into the industrial era, 40 years back, and there's no modernity. You take any
okay,
particular, particular branch of science or industry, right from agriculture, finance, banking, um, what have chemicals, anything without the ICT, it is much more, the modern world doesn't exist. So to give handover control of a nervous system of a nation to other countries who have created multinationals and who have created secret laws to control those multinationals, um, it was astonishing that we allowed this to happen, and there was no
yeah.
question. Yeah, and that has got immense national security implications.
I know it was very, very shocking, and yes. So you have fairly given us the idea about what the data is, what is the individual data, what is the national data, and how what is implication. And as far as privacy issue is there, which is much in the air today, everybody is talking about that. So, and this is some one issue that is very personal to me also. So we'll come to revisit this privacy issue when you have we have done with this interview in the last. I will come back to it. But let's go a little systematically. And you have already told us about the data. And now let's tell us what is ICT? What is its criticality for a sovereign state like India? Why it has become so important to us? The entire ICT, that your technology, environment, architecture, ecosystem. So please let us know.
Okay, ICT, to expand it, as like I've just explained, as information and communication technology,
Okay.
and that is like the nervous system of a modern nation. The nation is controlled, in many ways through this invisible ICT medium. Not only nations, organizations within the nations also. They're all vastly interconnected. And if you look at
The
how,
data travels on this. Data travels on this. So what is the problem?
so there's no problem in data traveling. It is
Mhm.
control of the data, because
Okay.
if you look at, so in the information communication technology era, there is, I call it the before Snowden and the after Snowden era. So before Snowden, people like me used to understand the dangers, but we did not have the material to actually make people understand. Hey, let's see the danger. People at that time, because a lot of Indians were working in all these multinationals, and if you start saying, "Hey, they're backdooring everything and taking away the data," they would have, what do you mean? I'm working there, I'm creating this technology. How can they backdoor? Would have been, the refrain. But post that, people have to, say that iconic companies, which were even dealing with cybersecurity itself, was backdooring and stealing the data.
So they were
So
stealing the data. I mean, they were cornering all the data without our knowledge.
yes, because data is knowledge, and knowledge is power.
Okay.
And if you have the data of whole nations and organizations, it is like having a God's eye view into those particular societies. And you can control not only the politics, you can see what are the IP generation, new discoveries, who are the smart thinkers, who are the people whom you would like to keep on your side. You can do, it's imagination at work.
Yeah,
The information advantage is absolute. It cannot be overcome.
yeah,
Unlike nuclear technology, you can catch up with nuclear technology. But if you have got the information advantage of over the rest of society, you cannot bridge the gap because they'll always be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and that is ensuring that you live under the human condition and the way we evolved. Just about barely, 3 decades back, there was apartheid.
Very right,
Okay,
very right.
just 75 years back, we were a colony.
Yeah.
Human beings have not evolved further. It is just circumstances which ensure that the imperialism has gone back, the apartheid regime has gone back, racism exists, and many other things. Power differentials, and nations always try to, have a competitive advantage over other nations. So we can't afford to ignore this particular thing and look at it. When you look at it from a national security paradigm, you have to protect your own. That's the whole idea. If I today stand as I was born into India, Indian citizen, so I need to bat for India. I can't now start thinking of a global village which doesn't exist. People are very intelligently created. No, we are planning to create a global village. When the global village is finally created and I become a global citizen, then I'll definitely,
Very
bat
nice.
for him.
Very interesting point. Yeah.
But today, the fact is, Indian passport holders who are working for the government of India, a lot of them, are trying to be global citizens. This is dangerous.
Okay.
You can be a global citizen once you retire. You can migrate. You can go away. But you can't sit in the government of India and start batting for other, things.
Yeah. Very important. You have gotten a very important point. Yeah. So what I understand that the average individual, citizens, and person all over the globe, with our level of knowledge about technology, we all feel that our data, which we are leaving behind, our footprint all over the place, are fairly secure. That nobody will, there are rules and regulations to make sure that our data is not compromised, stolen, or taken away by someone else. By reading your book and listening to you, now I realize that this is not the truth. All our personal data, collective data, has already been compromised. It has been already cornered, and because and this has all happened because the ICT technology is entirely owned by other than our in India, and it mostly West and now it's Chinese. So, did you mention that a bulk of our ICT hardware, software, and platforms are now owned by China, or is of Chinese origin, and that's becoming very threatening?
Okay, so when you look at China is a boogeyman, a very easy boogeyman for India because they're there on the borders. We have had a previous war with them. Okay, but China is not alone the problem. There are definitely two camps here. One is the US-led Western camp. The other is
Okay.
China.
Yeah.
Now, I've explored the civilizational context of how the world exists, and we are a civilizational nation, and we are today 1/6 of humanity, and we are going to be one of the most populous nations in the world. We are going to be the biggest nation population-wise in the world.
Yeah, we will surpass China.
Yes. So, what is a nation all about? The nation is all about trying to raise your GDP so that the per capita, everyone comes into a comfort zone. Where today, majority of India is below or just hovering around the poverty line. We, as a nation, what would be our aspiration? To ensure that these masses come up. They come into middle class, and many of them rise. That's how the world is today, and we can't ignore this. Now, if that is what we are going to achieve, planning to achieve, if that is our aim, and no one can take away that particular aim from us, no one can say, no, our aim is to ensure that the population remains hovering around the poverty line.
Okay.
Okay. I don't think any Indian will agree to this particular statement.
Absolutely.
So, if your aim is to ensure that you rise, that means under one political entity. And that also, people have not, just that people believe that the British stitched together nations and left it for one India. No. Why is there one India? And why do we agree that, okay, we are part of the civilizational nation? Because history teaches us that if you, split up into small kingdoms, you will always be conquered by powers outside. There's
Very right.
a very rich history to this.
Very right. So you have outlined the threat, and nobody
So
disagrees that the threat exists, and the threat is monumental,
so
huge.
so I'm coming to that. So
Yeah.
if you allow the ICT,
Yeah.
not only the core networks,
Okay.
but your daily use appliances, which
Okay.
are all gathering data,
Yes.
and you have made policies which wherein we say 100% digital economy. We have not even created a law for privacy, which is a fundamental right.
Very important.
We
Yeah.
don't have a data localization policy. Even if we do these laws, we have no wherewithal to implement
Enforce
those.
it. Yeah.
Yes, because the appliances, etc., all are foreign.
Oh,
Okay,
absolutely.
including the armed forces, they believed in something called air gap. I'll come back. I'll come to it later, and how that is particular, fallacious and false thinking has taken
Yeah.
place. You can't. How do you control this particular environment, and how do
Okay.
you defend this nation? And if you are planning to rise and under one political authority, won't you, upset the global power structures? And won't people fear a rising India? These are all natural things which will happen, if we rise. And one has to plan ahead for this, because
Very right. Very right. Very
if
right.
you look at the global order, people are planned 100 years ahead
Absolutely.
to constrain nations and societies. They put structures in place. They might sweet talk to you today, but the underlying structures of the global governance is absolutely military hard power.
Absolutely.
And
No denying of the fact.
and we can't ignore these conditions and then just wait and take a nation into that. As a former military officer, and as a person dedicated to understanding the information domain and writing about strategic affairs, to ignore this particular truth, I just stitch together multidisciplinary subjects to stitch together this particular truth.
Very right.
So that's a reason I highlight these dangers.
Very right. So, yeah, you have outlined the danger that is looming ahead in front of the nation, let alone the privacy issue. So now, tell us, in all this, where the 5G factor comes in. To start with, what is 5G? And why it is considered a disruptive and a game changer in the current context.
Okay, so information communication technologies, if you look at 1G, 2G, 5G, these are all generations. First generation, second generation, fourth generation, and fifth generation. Right now we are in the fourth generation, where for a normal layman, it is about the speed at which I can download a movie.
Okay, that's
Okay.
the 4G,
Yeah.
2G, 3G.
So
That
from
is
those generations, it was faster pipes
okay.
where data can come to you faster.
Okay.
But fifth generation is a paradigm shift, because up till fourth generation, what was happening is, in 1 square kilometer, you could have 4,000 endpoints, which could be controlled by that particular technology.
Okay.
But in 5G, you can control about 1 million endpoints in 1 square kilometer. And the world is pushing towards an IoT. IoT sphere, that is the Internet of Things, where machine-to-machine communication is going to finally happen when 5G gets in.
Yeah.
So, and 5G is supposed to also lead to the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah.
Okay, where things like augmented reality, virtual reality, robotics, network cars, stuff like that is going to happen. This is going to be the next paradigm shift. So any technology which is the backbone for this has got immense military potential. Any nation who managed to control this particular technology and control the backbones under which will have absolute power over other nations. So I have written about this, and I've said, people ask me, what if we take Huawei and ZTE? As a strategic thinker, we cannot talk about what will happen. We can only talk about capabilities.
Okay.
The future is unpredictable, but if you allow certain capabilities to come to certain other nations, that can always lead to trouble. You hand over your entire core governing, I would say, the nervous system of your modern India to another nation, asking for trouble.
Very right. Um, so what I understand now that there is a data and there is a ICT environment. Data travels on the ICT in infrastructure, and right till now all these devices on which the digital information was being stored or captured, they were all standing, so they were standalone, I would say standalone, or they were separated, they were not connected. But with 5G, what you have explained just now, I understand that the 5G is going to connect all these things, because the Internet of Things, which only 5G can enable, is going to connect all the devices that we use in our day to day living. Our home will be 5G enabled, like Alexa and all. Already it has happened now. Everything, office will be 5G enabled. Your defense is going to be 5G enabled, and everything is going to get connected with everything. Which means now that data which was individually stored here and there, they are now going to talk to each other, and they can be all mopped up in one huge data bank. And then whosoever controls and has the power to access it and analyze it, he has the power. As you said, the information is power. So this is so much so about 5G that you have
Let me
explained,
let
and
me
I
let me. So, if you allow me to jump in, that is not
yeah, please.
exactly because there is something which is not been captured correctly.
Okay,
Even today, under 4G, the networks exist and the data is centrally there, and it is being analyzed by artificial intelligence algorithms, which is being built the way
okay,
we speak.
it is already happening.
Yes. So that itself, if you look at things like Cambridge Analytica, where people say that elections can be influenced. Okay, the more and more people you get on social media, the profiles can be analyzed, and people can influence elections and control nations.
Absolutely.
So there comes, if you will look,
Yeah,
if you
Cambridge
look,
Analytica and the complaints about Russia interfering in the US, it is all about this only.
yes, Cambridge Analytica is a British thing. The Russian allegations are different. Yeah. Anyway, but so the networks and the data are being analyzed even today. But what is going to happen in 5G is the amount of data which is going to get collected is going to multiply many-fold.
Yep. Okay.
Here, for example, in my house, I've got a smart TV, but very rarely do I connect it. I have been careful to ensure that it is only connected to the internet when I need it to. We have got some smartphones, okay. But other than that, I've ensured that all those Google Nest and all those other things which control particular this, I have not allowed it to come into because I don't trust it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Cannot be
but
trusted.
yeah, but when 5G comes, I will have no choice. Okay, it is like you can't be staying in a cave in a city, right? You can't go back.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I will not have any choice when 5G comes. It is going to be much more ubiquitous. Each and everything. Today, you have got companies like Tile. Okay, they are
Yeah.
planning to put a ID on each and every inanimate object, including pens, books, everything, so that everything can be, their idea is you should not misplace it. But when everything is going to be ubiquitously connected, the whole world, think about the intelligence and military potential of such a world. So,
Yeah.
okay, people can remotely, get you killed. They can see ahead and say, oh, okay, they can analyze and anticipate, okay, these are the events which are going to happen. You will not be able to take a car or a bus which is not remotely controlled. How will you realize whether it was a accident or a planned accident? Just keep it's your imagination.
So, request you to tell us any very precisely. My next question is that all economists, analysts, and observers world over agree that India in the next 5 to 10 years is going to emerge as the economy of more than 5 trillion. Everybody is so positive about it. So, therefore, tell us very precisely what, in view, is the greatest danger of India in this economic expansion. I mean, we think that is something very good is going to happen, but uh, you are sounding some alarming. What is that? What is going to happen?
So, see, economics is a field, when you get into it, it is a field where no one can, even the best of them cannot exactly predict. Okay, they
No,
use.
not economics. I'm not. I don't want you to talk economics. I said economic expansion is taking place now. Digital, your cyber world will also expand. So, how that cyber world is going to affect this expansion? I mean, is there any danger in that? Uh, that which you wanted to highlight. That precisely I wanted to.
Okay, so I will still wade into this economics part of it.
Okay.
What we predict, the future is in fact very difficult to predict. Okay,
Right.
people can only approximate and say, oh, this is what is going to happen. But I see a clear danger here because if you are going to rise, I again make this point. If you are going to rise economically, you are also going to rise militarily. Okay, and if you look at what is today happening, in spite of an economy which is tanking, because we have got a problem with China, the nation is forced to divert extra funds into the military part of it. We have no choice but to also militarily, because we have got a next door neighbor, China, who is a superpower, who's a revisionist power, whom we have unsettled borders with. So when it becomes a superpower, to survive as a nation, we also have to militarily arm ourselves to defend ourselves.
Yep.
Now those capacities will lead to alarm all over the place. So if you are a China or if you are another nation, what would you try to do? You would say, okay, this as one political dispensation looks risky if you allow it to rise. Let us split it into 10 or 40. That is what exactly the PL is. If you look at the core Naxal ideology, is India is 40 nations.
Okay. Divide.
Yeah. What is Pakistan saying? They are saying India is two. The one part is North India and the other is South India. Two nations, two more nations, or and maybe there are a lot of Europeans. I've heard this NGO say the northeast part of it is a different nation. Why do they say that? Because they see the danger of India. China could be constrained 100 years back by Admiral Alfred Thayer Mahan, saying that we will they're going to be a very powerful nation, so we need to plan for the defense of the Pacific, the first island chain, the second island chain. Look
This
at
was
India,
way back in
100 years back,
19.
100 years back.
Yeah.
Now you look at India dominating the sea lanes of communication with a central role in the Indian Ocean. How do you other powers constrain such a nation if it rises? So their natural this would be to ensure it doesn't rise.
Yeah.
Or ensure that there is internal schisms. If you look at history, the British East India Company exploited internal schisms to take over India.
Absolutely.
Because of a very variety of our population, that is what is our strategic vulnerability. And using social media and this data, they can intelligently ensure these schisms pop up all over the place. Just to give you one more small example, Burhan Wani, they say it never killed anyone. He was just a social media warrior, slightly good. But you looked at the problems they created for the Indian state.
Yeah, the thought has the power, and it can really move things.
Yeah. So that's a danger. So that is where ICT is going to play a part. If you don't indigenize, if you don't have a privacy law, if you don't localize that, if you can't prevent other nations using the MNCs to steal your data and take it away and create schisms internally, you're finished. You have survived the last maybe 10,000 years to arrive as an Indian civilization, but you may not survive for the next 100, 200 years.
Yeah, very right. So you had taken our discussion to a lot of geopolitical arena. So I will now, my next question will be something related to that. In your various articulations and writings, I found that you have been using one term very frequently and often, and that term is cyber common, or sometimes you have also referred it to as a new common. So I will like to know what is the cyber common, what is its history, why you feel it is giving a new dimension to the classical geopolitical rivalry of the world domination that we are witnessing today. Give us this concept. What is this all about?
Okay, cyber commons is a term which has been created by the Americans.
Okay.
The term commons itself was created initially used by Admiral Thayer Mahan.
Yeah.
Okay, and other people have further taken it, examined it, and they have said that in the new world, in the olden world, the imperial powers, what they used to do was, he used to come and establish their military control over nations and extract wealth.
Yeah.
In the new world, that is after post Second World War, that was no longer fashionable.
Okay.
Their domestic populations itself did not like the idea of their military is going and extracting wealth from other nations.
Yeah.
But the nature of man has not changed. So what they've done is the connective tissue of the globe, the places where no nation exercises sovereign control. Those
Yeah.
are the high seas, the air, space, outer space. These are the
Yeah.
commons. Antarctica. These are the commons.
Okay. Okay. So
Okay,
these are common.
so military powers, superpowers, what they do is they control commons, because
They
without
dominate the commons.
they militarily dominate the commons to ensure that people, other nations can be pressurized. For example, look at Iran.
Yeah.
The US has sanctioned Iran. Now, what does the meaning of that sanction is? The US Navy will blockade. The US Treasury has said that no one can trade with it because they control SWIFT. No bank can do do this. So they're pressurizing the nation to bow down to the US will. I'm not
Yeah.
debating the pluses or minuses of that particular decision, but that is how the world has evolved. Now, I am a guy who has said there is no commons in cyberspace, although the US is trying to push saying, oh, cyberspace is a commons.
Okay.
Okay. Because when I look at cyberspace, I see one nation controlling cyberspace. Firstly, they imagined that space, they created the domain, and they have ensured that that particular domain is totally under their control by multiple stratagems.
Okay.
Okay, they do it by control of ICANN, which controls DNS service, root service. They've ensured that chip technology is very tightly controlled. Okay, they've also ensured that huge money is poured into other nations to say that privacy is a cultural issue. So third world countries, etc., they don't have a privacy concept.
Okay.
If you examine history, 50 years back, there was no privacy concept even in the West.
Yeah.
They foresaw the time of internet, connected computers, and realized that if you don't push the concept of privacy, their populations can be exploited, and people can be exploited. So they pushed and educated their population. So today, that it is part of privacy is a cultural aspect of the West.
Okay.
They also created literature which said that privacy is not an Indian culture.
Okay.
Okay, it's not an
No,
African
it is
culture. It's
enshrined
not
in
a
the
third world culture.
Constitution.
Yes, there is enormous money to be made. When I look at the world today, I see, one of the pictures which I remember seeing when I was a kid in school, in a library. Okay, there are Western traders going into Americas those days. They were carrying glass beads, bangles, which look like exciting things for the native Indians. And they were exchanging those glass beads and bangles
Okay.
for gold.
Yeah.
Today, we were given a lot of virtual glass beads, and they're taking away your gold. Okay.
That is data.
That is
our
I see.
information. Oh, very
Me,
nicely put. Very nicely.
yeah, that is what I see.
Yeah,
And this is
they are giving us a smartphone in our hand, and we are so very happy to have it. And they through that they are cornering,
they've
taking away all
created
our
such a culture
data.
around a smartphone. Okay, the initial phones which came all had physical switches.
Yeah.
The latest smartphones are all virtual switches, and the battery cannot even be taken out. Okay, they've ensured about 24 sensors are sitting on each and every human being and sensing the entire environment as we speak. They pushed mass culture into making it a fashion statement.
Linked it to the GPS.
And for me, the troubling thing is, if you look at the history of how the East India Company came into India, they conquered India not with English troops. They conquered India by recruiting Indians to their particular fold. And I see this batch of Indians who keep saying, oh, privacy is this, data needs to flow. They're penetrated into our government and military structures and talking the same language. So when I see the history of the world unfold, these are people who are opening the 4 doors. They need to be identified.
Yeah.
What are we waiting for?
I understand what you are hinting at. That
I'm not
in this,
hinting. I'm saying it very openly, sir. I'm not
okay,
hinting. I'm saying it very openly. It's all there right
that
in front of you. They're
that in
pouring
the
billions of
in
dollars into ensuring that their particular narrative is pushed.
yeah. So much of the danger lies within us also to
Absolutely.
handle this problem that you have talked about. The danger is though danger has been imposed from outside, but to combat it, we have to combat a lot of internal dangers, internal elements.
Absolutely. So there you have seen the BSNL saga, BSNL Huawei City saga, I call it.
Yeah.
In spite of our armies facing each other and our people being killed, BSNL was repeatedly trying to get Chinese vendors into our system. In spite
Because
of
they
the
were
government's,
cheap.
yeah, they were cheaper or whatever. It is not only the cheapness of things. No, when you're used to a particular thing, okay,
Yeah.
and you develop, business interests with each other, that trumps everything else. So today, if you look at, there are business houses which have taken in huge investments, okay, from these multinationals,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they are
Very
going to
nice.
bat for those multinationals. There you are.
Okay, so my last question to you was about the cyberspace, and you have very nicely told us that the commons are space is going to be the new age common as the West have defined it,
I have said no,
and
it is not a common. They're pushing
yeah,
it as a common,
they
and it
they
is not
want
a
to push
common.
this concept, and to for our viewers to understand what common stands for, is common is the sea, is the air, and is the space, and to some extent even the world of finance is a common, and whosoever dominates the SLOC, that is sea lanes of communication, yani, means that those who can dominate the sea, those who can dominate the air, those who can dominate the space and the finance, and now those who can dominate the new common that is coming up is the cyberspace, and this is dominated at the moment entirely by the West. And you say that West wants to say that it is common, which is not true.
So I
Correct
will,
me?
I will repeat this again, sir.
Yeah,
Firstly, commons are domains where national sovereignty of individual nations does not exist.
absolutely.
They have also been defined as a connective, domains which connect nations together.
Okay.
Okay, it can happen on the seas, it can happen on by the air, it can also happen, on land. A common space would be like Antarctica. No nation has sovereign this over Antarctica. Okay, um, so I am one of these people who are saying that this the US narrative, because we can't call it a Western narrative anymore, because countries in the European Union have started opposing this. If you look at it,
Questioning it. Okay.
yeah, they have, France, Germany, again, nations with a storied history. Okay, their own imperial nature of those nations will not permit another imperial nation to dominate them.
Okay.
Okay, there are certain nations which are much smaller who realize that we have no chance, so they might join in alliance with other people. So a nation of India's size, we cannot be a lackey to anyone to rise, because our aim, what is our fundamental aim? To ensure that our population rises into the middle income and maybe higher income brackets, correct? If that is the aim of
Oh,
those nations, which no one can change, and the nature of man, which no one can change,
okay.
then there is immense danger to the Indian nation.
Because this cyber space is supposed to be, if it exists, supposed to be without borders, without boundaries. No nation can exercise sovereign control over it.
So
West
these are
wants to
things which are being pushed by very
these are
intelligent narratives,
so the
by very
alternative
intelligent
is
people.
therefore what I understand, the alternative is then we'll have to become like China and Russia or North Korea. We'll 100% control the put boundaries over the cyberspace
So
and
I can imagine, sir,
guard
you are.
it.
So let me put it in another way, sir. You are totally immersed in a narrative which has been put out.
Okay.
Okay, you are the victim of your own narrative.
Oh,
I'm so
very
sorry.
interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so there you have said it. when Saddam Hussein decided to dump the US dollar and take euro as the and sell his oil in
Became
euros,
their greatest
he
enemy.
became the axis of evil.
Yes, yes.
Okay, today Iraq is no longer the axis of evil. The other axis of evil was Iran and Venezuela. In fact, at that time, the people who opposed it was France and Germany.
Okay.
And the US said, "Oh, we will not call French fries anymore French fries. They are freedom fries."
Okay.
So
Very
nations,
interesting.
nations who do not toe the line are not always China, Russia, North Korea, etc. Okay, there is the European Union who's brought in a law called GDPR, and under the GDPR, data was allowed to flow, but people filed cases and questioned this free flow of data, which the European Union has held high. Said no, data cannot flow.
Okay.
Now, what the European Union does is they never allowed free flow to India. Okay, because they said there has to be adequate security principles. Since India is not of adequate, this no data will not. So we should also say we have our own standards. We are
Yeah.
a free, democratic, liberal nation who has no problem in data flowing, but we have to have adequacy principles. Adequacy principles is wherever the Indian, sovereign jurisdiction exists, our data can flow. If it doesn't exist, it can't flow. You have to rechange the thing. Okay.
Yes.
If tomorrow US says, okay, the taste of Texas is under Indian jurisdiction, we allow, our local police and IPC will exist. Our laws will exist. We will allow it to flow. If it doesn't exist, it doesn't flow. It doesn't mean that we are not free. Freedom of
Okay.
speech and free flow of data have been dangerously, mixed up together to create this confusion.
Okay.
Freedom of speech and free flow of data are totally two different things.
Yeah, it's a very, very tricky topic. Now we are in the border of one who stands for absolute freedom of speech expression, and they don't want the data to be controlled.
No,
And
free speech.
those.
Again, I repeat, sir, free flow of speech is to be promoted. Free flow of data is not to be promoted.
Okay.
Okay, don't mix up the two. That is where people make the mistake, and it's a very intelligent, narrative which has created this particular confusion.
Oh, very
Okay,
rightly.
the US does not allow free flow of data. Let me tell you this. They don't
Oh,
permit.
okay. So now, we come to our next question, and see, you have outlined the danger. You have discussed the nature of that danger that exists. You have said that how that danger operates. You have also talked about the infrastructure, the ecosystem that promote that danger to grow and cause us concern. So I was wondering, the solution to this is, as you have suggested, that we need to be self-sufficient in our ICT technology. We should, if we don't have it, we must develop it, and time is not much. So I was wondering, since we have such a huge startup community, we have so much of talent, skill, entrepreneurship. So what holds us from becoming self-reliant in ICT under Prime Minister Modi ji's Atmanirbhar slogan? Why can't our startup just go ahead and do it? In your book, you have said, and I quote, system is gamed towards big foreign players, leaving indigenous startups high and dry. So, in this context, can you elaborate what you wanted to say?
So, Atmanirbhar Bharat is a slogan given by the Prime Minister. Now, that slogan needs to be fleshed out into proper policies, looking at local conditions.
Okay.
Now, people have questioned me and said, hey, this is a cultural aspect. Indians are not innovative. So, I have questioned them back saying, okay, let us take the example of a South and North Korea. No one says the ethnicity is different. They're Koreans. But they've got a political divide and they've got a system divide.
Yeah.
So, how has South Korea become a how do you say it? How do you put it? Has become a virtual garden which explodes with innovation? And how is North Korea still more or less in the industrial age? with no innovation to
Okay.
speak of.
Okay. That's a contrast. Yeah.
So it has got
Not
nothing to do with culture. It has got the culture follows policy.
and
Innovation
systems.
culture follows policy. Initiatives.
Okay.
Why does Israel, a nation which is created in a desert with no resources,
Yes.
surrounded by enemies, one of the innovation, hot potatoes of the
Hub.
world? Why does one intelligence organization of Israel create more startups than Stanford University?
Okay. Yeah.
So I have just explored the reasons theretofore, and I have said these are the reasons why it is there. And why it does not happen in India is because we have got, I quote the parliamentary committee report, which says we have got a reverse pyramid, tax structures. So, for example, I decide to manufacture something in India and try to sell it to another customer in India. I will attract so much of taxes, okay, that if I export this particular item to, for example, Dubai, re-import it into India and sell it to the customer, it becomes cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have created tax and policy structures. You have signed treaties in WTO and many other places which no other nation has done. Under those circumstances, how can innovation ecosystem take off? So you need to
They
change
are
all these
great
things.
barriers for the innovation and startups to, yeah, and the government. You want the government now to intervene and remove those hurdles. It has
Absolutely.
become
It is
that
not
way.
only remove the hurdles. I want the government to handhold these companies,
Facilitate. Facility. Yes,
facilitate the
you
rise
have
of these
suggested
companies.
two very good models in your book. I have gone through it. It's really, if somebody can take note of it, it is definitely workable, it seems, and it is high time because time is not left much for India to do something about it. And your suggestion, Mr. Pavitran, thank you very much. Our time is getting over. So it was extremely illuminating and very educative to have this discussion with you. I'm sure our viewers who might be listening must be enlightened and got to the feel of what kind of danger exists in India today. While economically we may expand, but security wise and especially national security wise, we have a new front to take care. So the enemy is not only sitting at the Ladakh border or maybe coming through the Indian Ocean region. The enemy is right inside us, already crossed the border in the cyberspace, and we have to take note and do the right things. And you have suggested some very specific things that government should do. I hope your voice reaches the right quarters in the place to be, in the power to be, and they not only take note of it, they do something about it. Thank you very much, Mr. Pavitran Rajan. You have been a great thinker and speaker, and we are very happy that you shared your thoughts and views with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. It was a privilege to be on your show, and you did ask very penetrating questions. I hope it reaches right quarters. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So I'm stopping the